All right. Welcome to the Rentals to Wealth Real Estate Investing Q&A. Doug, hello. Glad that you're here. Glad that you could make it. Excited for our conversation today. I'm going to hit all of your most difficult, challenging questions. So here's how this will work. You guys, you can ask questions at blakeshwanney.com/ask. If you submit questions there, I'll go through those questions. Allie, I know I saw your question, so we'll get through that. But we will have priority questions go to those in the chat. So it goes to those that are on the Zoom call, the questions sent over in the chat. So if you guys got questions, send them over in the chat and I'll get to yours first. Then we go to the ask questions and blakeshwanney.com/ask, and we get those taken care of. Boom. Awesome. If you are watching this on other social platforms and you want to be in the call, like all the legit real estate investors that are here, you can go to Rentals to Wealth, our Rentals to Wealth group at school.com, SKOOL.com/rentals, the number 2 wealth, Rentals2Wealth. Go to calendar and you can click on that link and you will be here. So in-call questions get hit first. My name is Blake Choisnet. I'm the founder of the Rental Roadmap. Built a multi-million-dollar portfolio of cash flowing rentals in 18 months, retired in 2 years, became a self-made millionaire in less than 5 years. And now I help other people do the same thing. Split my time between growing my portfolio, our family's portfolio, and helping other people do the same thing. So if you're interested in that, I'll send over interested in learning more there. Boom. That's in the chat. And you can check that out if you're interested. But the goal here is to get all of your questions answered. So all of your hardest questions answered. So with that, send them over in the comments and we will get rolling. Before we hit questions, I'm going to do just a quick market update. We're seeing rates lower since 25. We're looking at DSCR rates that are sub 6% or sub 7%. Sub 6% would be nice. Sub 7%. So rates are coming down. Things are getting a little bit easier to underwrite. Trump is talking about really two ideas: capping or not allowing institutional investors like BlackRock, State Street, and Vanguard to invest in real estate, single family homes. And so that's one thing to hit on. So with Trump saying that large institutional investors can't invest in single family homes, there's a few things to think about here. Your knee-jerk reaction might be, I got to stop investing in real estate. That would be crazy. That would be absolutely bonkers. If you do, it's just more deals for the people in this call and the investors that are going for it. I'll tell you what it means and what it doesn't mean. What it means is large groups like BlackRock, Vanguard, State Street, institutions like that can't buy single family homes. But they can buy duplexes, triplexes, quadplexes, 10plexes, 40plexes. They can still buy those. The goal here, the hypothesis here is that it will decrease home prices. But the reality is that the percentage of single family homes that they own is so absolutely small. It's difficult to scale at an institutional level with single family homes. Even Warren Buffett has said the same thing. He said, if I could scale with single family homes, I would. But the great Warren Buffett can't do it. BlackRock, State Street, Vanguard, they can't do it either. And I'm talking, thousands of doors a year, or tens of thousands of doors a year. So what it doesn't mean is that prices are going to plummet. Prices will adjust to the market based on supply and demand. With them owning such a small portion, I don't anticipate it actually having much impact on the purchase price of homes or the values of homes. The other thing it doesn't mean is that they can't buy any real estate at all. So again, duplexes and higher, they can buy. So that's what we're looking at as far as that idea being floated. Nothing's been passed right now. It's just talk. The other thing that's just being talked about is Trump is proposing putting a 10% cap on credit card interest rates, which, that's great. A cap on credit cards is great. There are pros and cons to that, just like we'll learn or we talk about all the time. If it sounds sexy, there's probably a trade-off that you're giving up. The good news here is that you'll pay less in interest. You'll pay less on your interest fees. The hard news is it's going to make it harder to get credit card lines. It's going to be harder to get higher lines. Your lines will probably decrease, but it will limit your interest spent on credit cards. So those are just a few different market updates. Around this time of year, you should be, if you've got a portfolio, you've got a rental, you should be looking for your Form 1098s from your lender. That is your mortgage interest statement that outlines the amount of principal and amount of interest that you paid. That goes straight to your CPA so that you can file taxes and offset a bunch of your W-2 money, hopefully all of it, depending on the size and structure of your portfolio. You also want to start right now, start getting your property tax documents in order. I recommend having somebody fight property taxes for you. A few different organizations that can do that. But basically, what you want to do is make sure to get pictures of your property, all the ones that are the least sexy, all of the deferred maintenance and everything. Send that over to your property tax protest so that you can decrease the amount that you are paying in taxes. All right, that's our quick market update. We will hop into questions now. And Allie, I'm going to go over to yours first. All right. I'm looking into purchasing a single family home currently listed as a 3-2. It's got a full finished basement and the possibility of renting out an upstairs and downstairs unit. 3-1 and a 1-1. Okay. I would need to do a little bit of work to have 2 tenant occupancy, washer, dryer upstairs, kitchenette. Okay. With just 1 tenant occupancy, no constructions needed. How should I determine if it would be better to rent for 1 long-term tenant or 2 long-term tenants? My agent thinks the rental income would be about the same regardless if we went into 1 or combined rents from 2 tenants. Suffolk County, New York, 4 minutes away from train stop. It takes you to New York City, 15 minutes. Okay, so a few things here. It sounds like this is a single family home that could be converted into a multi-unit. I'll give you kind of my high level. High level is it's in New York, so don't buy it. That's just my high level takeaway. The tenant laws, the landlord laws are terrible in New York. They're driven by primarily New York City. There's rent control and the new mayor of New York City he's just going to influence things to be a lot more controlled and restrictive for landlords. So if I were buying and I were buying in New York, this would be the last time that I would buy in New York. I would not be buying in New York right now. If I've got previous rentals, I might consider selling them right now because you know what's happening right now. You don't know what's coming. And you can trade that in for better cash flow down the road. Now, if you say, well, I'm hell-bent on New York, what I would do is I would look, if this question is in a good cash flow market, for example, should I keep it a single family home, or should I put a little bit more work into it and make it a multifamily home? There's not really going to be any, check your state regulations, but there's not going to be any major issues as far as not licensing, but zoning, because if it's zoned for single family, it's usually zoned for 1 to 4 units, single family 1 to 4. But in this case, this is just I would look at this as a return on investment or a cash on cash return. So how much money you got to put in, let's say it's $10,000, and how much extra money do you get out? So if you can rent the whole thing for $1,000 a month with no money in, no extra money in, and then you make an extra $200 a month, and it takes $10,000 to get in, your cash on cash return is 200 on top, multiplied by 12 because it's yearly, so 2,400 divided by 10,000. That's 24%. If it's above 30%, I say just go for it. 24%, you could decide what you wanted to do with it. If it's split out into a multifamily, you reduce the amount of people that would be purchasing it, the pool of buyers. And so I would take that into account, because one of the sexy parts about single family homes is that they're hyper liquid, right? If you want to sell a 100-unit multifamily apartment complex, how many people are buying that? Percentage of the population, not very small or not very big. Whereas if you're selling a single family home, especially with some of these new announcements that they're looking at limiting State Street and large institutional investors from buying from those places, then I think that can make sense. So that's what I'd say on that front. Um, if you're saying that your agent thinks that you're going to get the exact same rent with a single family home versus making it a multifamily home, that answers your question right there. Because you're saying, I'll get $1,000 over here with zero in, I'll get $1,000 over here with $10,000 in. Easy. Just leave it as a single family home. All righty. Hopefully that helps answer your question. If again, if you, Ali, if you've got a follow up on that, feel free to send it over on the chat and I'll give you some feedback. All right. Freddie asks, what's the best way for me to find a cash investor? Best way for me to find a cash investor. Freddie, I'm assuming that you mean a private money lender. And when I say private money lender, I want to distinguish between private money and a hard money lender. A private money lender is an individual with their own money that they're lending. So they've pulled it out of their 401k or they've got it sitting in cash or they whatever. They sold all their beanie babies to be able to have a stock of cash or a stockpile of cash, and they're now going to lend it. A hard money lender is not an individual; it's an institution. Think about it as like a mini bank, and they are optimized for lending on flips and real estate transactions. So they might market themselves as a private money lender; they're just not. They're a hard money lender, and they have some benefits. I'm no hater of hard money, but if you've got a hard money lender, they are going to be, six to 10 to 15 people, an organization. They're larger ones too, but they're going to borrow money at say, 8%, and then they're going to lend it out to you and me at 16% or 18% or whatever the prevailing rates are for your experience level and their optimization. We're not looking at hard money lenders the hard money lenders, those are all over the place. You just spin around in a circle, point, and you'll find a hard money lender. For a private money lender, I would recommend a few things. I recommend two steps. This process, this is a skill. Raising money is a skill. I raised tens of millions of dollars, and I've helped my students raise tens of millions of dollars. This is a science. It's not an art, a knowable witchcraft. Like raising private money is not a crazy secret magic. You can science this, and so what you've got to do is you've got to have a good process, and you got to understand how to get somebody like this to want to invest with you. Because the reality is, if you find the right person, it's like giving them a cool glass of water in the desert. They will beg you to give you their money. But if you're asking the wrong person, you're screwed at the very, very beginning, right? So to use an example, if you went up to somebody that you knew had no connections and had no money, and you said, "Hey, will you loan me $100,000?" You're screwed every time. That's just not going to work. But instead, if you went up to somebody that you knew had a ton of money and they were looking to do exactly what you wanted to do or exactly what you could help them with, you're in a perfect spot. Right. So, if they're thirsty and they want what you have to offer, it's going to be easy. So, how do you find those people? How do you convince them to lend to you, and how do you fulfill on it? As far as the convincing to lend to you side of things, I recommend two parts. First is like a 45-second pitch, a 30 to 45-second pitch. Second is a 45-minute conversation. So the 45-second pitch is, "Hey, Bob, as you know, you may or may not know, but I'm investing in real estate, and I'm always working with partners to help them make a bunch of money. The people that this is right for, one, they want a better return than they're currently getting in whatever it is, their 401k, whatever. They want less volatility than the stock market, just because someone can take over, Reddit can take over some stock, and you don't know what it's going to do. And they want it to be safe. They want it to be reasonably predictable. Do you know anybody that would be good for?" So you outline those three things. Those are the three things they care about. And then you ask them, "Do you know anybody?" This does two things. One, it gives them an easy exit. All right. Instead of you saying, "Do you want to buy my widget for, the 3 easy payments of $9.95?" And then them saying like, "Well, this is getting awkward now. I got to say no." Right. It gives them a soft exit, and they can say, "Do I know anybody?" Right. And saying no to that question is way easier. The more important thing that it does, though, is it connects you to their network. It connects you to their network, all the people that they know. Previously, call it 10, 15 years ago, we were, 7 degrees of freedom away from anybody in the world. So if I know person one and they know person two, person 3, we're 7 steps away. Now with social media and the proliferation of technology, we're 3 steps away. So you can literally connect to the whole world through 2 really good connections. So what you want to do is ask them, do you know anybody that's a good fit for? And that's going to connect you to their whole network, and they'll think through, who would that be a good fit for? So the people that you're looking for, either one, have money, or two, they're well connected. They know people. All right. So that's your first question. If they say yes, I'm interested, they can self opt in. Yeah, I'm interested. Great. Then you set up a call for 45 minutes, like a 45-minute call. You set it for, next week, ideally sometime in the next 2 weeks. The sooner, the better. But if this is your first time, you probably want to give yourself a couple days to plan and figure out and get my private money lending scripts in the school community so that you can go through and manage that conversation. If they say, no, I don't, ask them one more time. Okay, well, if you think of anybody after this meeting, will you let me know? And get them to confirm that they will let you know. All right. The other is they say, yes, I do know somebody. So not yes, I opt in, or not no, I don't know anybody, but yes, I know somebody. At that point, your goal is to get a connection. And not just any ancillary connection where they say like, here, yeah, here's his email address, or here's his, send him a carrier pigeon this way. You want a text introduction, text or email introduction, a warm introduction. So that means that you, this person, and the person you're talking with, the potential private lender and the person you're talking with, you are all three on a text chain or an email chain. That forces that person to connect their trust with you. So when you connect with those people, or that person makes that email, they're saying, I trust this person enough to connect you with them. So now you borrow the relational equity from that person with your new potential private money lender. Then you do that pitch again. You say, would this be good? No. All right. So you go ahead and set up a quick conversation for, you can set up a 30-minute conversation and open it up with that conversation of, this is who this is right for. What do you think? Do you know anybody? But you got to be ready to roll straight into your longer conversation. So those are the 3 things that you're going to do. But you're just looking for somebody that has money or is well connected. That's it. But the important thing is you've got to get them to trust you. Anytime someone gives you anything, any amount of money, any significant amount of money, you got to get them to trust you. And trust is a function of 2 things. All right. So for those on the call, gold star for anybody that can give me the answer to what are the 2 things, or in fact, if you get one of them right, I'll give it to you. In fact, I will give you my private money scripts. Yeah, I'll give you my private money lending raising scripts if you get these right. So send over. Trust is a function of 2 things. Send over your responses, and we'll see if anybody gets it right. Send it over in the chat. You got to get someone to trust you. You got to get somebody to give your money, or heck, this is true for all components of trust: marriage, relationships, friendships, business. All right. No, correct. Okay. Dependability. Tell you what, Doug, that's close enough. Character. Character is one of them. And really, dependability kind of overlaps with the other. So, Doug, you're the winner. It's the first one is character, and the second one is competence. So, character and competence. 1, you got to know what you're doing, competence, and 2, you got to be a good person. So, what you're trying to convince them of is that you are both of those things, right? So, you have the character and you have competence. When you're having these conversations, usually character is easier to validate because if you have a personal relationship with this person, then you've already made your bed, so you get to sleep in it. And that's the luxury that being a good person, an honorable person, and the person that you want to be over your entire life earns you, is people's trust in your character. So what this means is they think that you're not going to try and screw them. Like you're ideologically aligned. You're not just going to like give them money or lay down in the middle of traffic, but you're at least going to take their intentions and their goals into consideration. The other is competence, and this is the harder part, especially for newer investors. It's still very, very possible for new investors, brand new, no deals, haven't had any experience with real estate, to raise money. I raised almost $1 million with no experience. Um, and so you can definitely do it, but you have to get them to trust your competence. So that's the harder part. So if you do have properties, I recommend putting together an investor portfolio or examples of the deals that you've done with numbers that the lender cares about, not how much it cash flows or not how much you refinanced out for and you got in your pocket. You just want them to know, if you would put money into this and you would loan me the $100,000 all in that I needed, here's the amount that you would have made back. All right. And put that into a portfolio so that they can see your experience and send that over to them between your 45-second conversation and your 45-minute conversation. Say, hey, I'll send over an example of a few deals that I've done with what the lender's return has been, and hopefully that's just helpful for jogging any questions that you might have in our conversation. Um, that's what you want to do. If you get to the point, and this may happen, where they say, yes, I'm interested in working with you, but let's just do a few deals, and you do 3 or 4 deals, and then we'll see where it goes. All right. In that case, you're kind of in a chicken and egg situation. So what I recommend asking is address the objection right away, which is, I don't trust you. All right. And they're not saying you're a terrible person. They don't trust your competence, most likely. So what I would say is, fair. That makes sense. So usually when I run into this, like this is a conversation about trust, really. Do you trust me? Right? Because if you had 100% confidence that I could make you 18% or 15%, you would throw your money at me. All right. So it's a conversation about trust. Trust is made up of character and competence. Right? Am I a good person, and do I know what I'm doing? Out of those two things, which is it? It's not going to hurt my feelings. Which is a bigger concern for you that makes you hesitate? Competence. Okay. What part? All right. What part of competence is it that you're scared that the rehab's going to go over? Is it like, but don't give them these examples. Just say, like, what part? Leave it open ended so that they can articulate it exactly. Because if they say something like, "Oh, it's private money lending," what if rehab goes over? Then you say, "Well, that's a good question. That's something for me to be concerned with, not you. You're guaranteed this money. This is a promissory note. It's a debt note." So it's kind of like, if I put, if I want to start a bracelet company so that my kid can sell bracelets at school, and they're my sales rep, and I buy all of the sales, or I buy all the beads and all of the bracelet material on a credit card. If nobody buys the bracelets, is it the credit card's problem? No, it's not the credit card companies. It's not Chase. It's not Wells Fargo. It's not BOA. Their problem. It's my problem. I got to pay them back. Otherwise, I'm going to lose my house. All right. So that will help you identify the obstacles a little, the objections that they have more clearly, so that you can get to a point where you say, "Are you ready to roll? You want to do this?" And they say yes. So, Doug, I'm going to send you. In fact, Doug, Doug, send me a link to your profile in school, and I will send you the private money lending scripts, or I'll actually open up that product for you, give it to you for free. Doug, let's see. Boom. Okay, I'm guessing this is Douglas Bork. Give me a thumbs up on that if that is you, and I will give you access to that one, so that you can go just raise tons and tons of money. Courses, boom, 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 boom. Sweet. Da, 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 da. Access to here. Master scripts. Sweet. There you go. You got it now. Awesome. All right. Next question from Brock Williams. What remote market did you start with, and what remote market do you recommend now? Brock, this is a great question. First, I want to talk about, like, when you say remote market, what do you mean? Because some people, I know you know what you're talking about, but I don't. Not everybody will know what you're talking about when you say remote market. And then I'll tell you exactly how to find a remote market. In fact, I'm getting ready to do a webinar on this next week. I'm going to be doing a webinar that is, how do you get your first rental in 90 days? How do you get your next rental in 90 days? And I'm going to be teaching on the one thing that, if you do it right, it solves everything else, makes everything else easier. And we'll be talking about this component in here is the remote market side of things. So let's talk about remote market. So first of all, when Brock says remote market, what he means is a market that you don't live in. So if you think, let's say you're somebody that says, I want cash flow. I want cash flow for my real estate investing goals. I need cash flow so I can become work optional. I can offset, my taxes. I can get some wealth creation, but I can become work optional. I can finally do what I want to do. Finally spend my time the way I want to spend my time instead of being shackled to the 9 to 5 or really, 7 to 7, right? For most people. Um, so if you want that freedom and you spend your time painting, maybe you stink at painting, you couldn't sell painting if you paid somebody to take it, but it fills your soul, you get to paint, right? If you want to spend more time with your kids or take care of your folks or start the nonprofit or the business or whatever, or just have some freedom to breathe for a second, you need cash flow. The problem with that is nobody lives in a cash flow market. 90% of America does not live in a good cash flow market. 80% of them live in major metros like New York City. And we just talked about New York City, or the Bay Area, or Portland, or Austin, Texas. And these are places where you could buy $1 million property and rent it out for $3,000 a month. That's a 0.3% rent to price ratio. That is terrible. You're not going to cash flow. You're going to lose $1,200 a month on that. And I'm not saying that you should never buy those properties. Those are great for tax offset. But if you need cash, first you need cash flow to be able to get work optional. Then you buy tax advantaged properties so that you don't have to pay any money at all on all of the income that you make. And that's why all this conversation about tax to billionaires, tax to the reality is you can't, because they're run as businesses, and businesses are taxed on profit, and profit is a function of income and expenses. And as long as depreciation and material expenses on properties is considered an expense, which is going to be forever, you're just not going to be able to do that. So the structure has to be different if that's the goal that you want to accomplish. So if 90+% of America doesn't live in a cash flow market, how do you invest for cash flow? You have to figure out where the cash flow is, and you got to go there. Because think about it this way. You could either invest in a cash flow market, buy properties there, or you could buy in the market where you live. Well, if you buy in the market where you live, you're saying like I'm prioritizing relationships, or I'm prioritizing convenience, or being nearby, or whatever it is, and I'm just going to find the deals. Whereas the remote property, or the remote market, you're saying I'm prioritizing the cash flow. I'm prioritizing the result that I want. It's kind of like deciding, we've got two little ones. We've got a 3.5-year-old and we've got a 7-month-old. And so we just came out of the fog of war with our kids, or with our youngest one, and he's growing out of all his clothes. And I was on daddy duty this morning. I got just some me time with little Parker, and he's just cute as all get out. He's the perfect child, but he's growing out of all of his clothes. If my wife Britt, if she said, "Hey, babe, will you go get some outfits for Parker?" I could be the most loving father, caring father. If I went to Home Depot because it's closer to my house, I'm screwed. There's just no way that I could come home with anything helpful. My best case scenario is a tarp and some rope, right? And Parker's not going to be happy with that. My wife certainly isn't going to be happy with that. But instead, if I went to the right place that it was just easy. It's like shooting fish in a barrel. If I went to Target or Walmart or the Kids R Us or whatever, a place that sold kids clothes, I could be just a terrible father, and I'd come home with something helpful. So it does not matter your intention. Your intention does not matter. Your execution is what matters. So that's the reality. So you can I like to ask the question, is it easier to build relationships in a new market, or is it easier to fundamentally change the economics of a market? Obviously, it's easier to make new friends in a market than it is to change the economics of a market. Because there are markets out there, like I mentioned, where you can buy a $1 million house and rent it out for $3,000 a month, or you could buy a $200,000 house and rent it out for $3,000 a month. Which would you prefer? All right, there are places you can buy a $100,000 house, rent it out for $1,500 a month, and there are places you can buy a $400,000 house and rent it out for $1,500 a month. You would rather the former, because you actually cash flow. You make more money and you have less money out of your own pocket. And if you're an investor, or you're an aspiring investor, you have to begin looking at money as through the lens of return on investment. So you got to say, if I'm given this money, how much am I going to get back? And that's the fundamental question that we're asking. So if you're looking at a market and you're saying, how do I tell whether a market is a cash flow market or not? I'll tell you the secret. There is one metric that defines cash flow ability. It's the one thing that tells us this thing is more likely to cash flow or less likely to cash flow. Anybody know what it is? Send it over in the chat. I'll give you my market selection masterclass if you know that one. Tells us whether it's likely to cash flow. All right, last call. It is rent to price ratio. Rent to price ratio. So this tells you, is a property going to cash flow or is a market going to cash flow? And it's certainly not a perfect metric, but it is our best metric for indicating whether or not a property or a market is likely to cash flow. It's oriented toward cash flow. So, for example, if you got a $100,000 property and it rents for $1,000 a month, rent to price ratio says what's the rent on top divided by what's the price. $1,000 a month divided by $100,000. That's 1%. That might sound familiar, right? That is the 1% rule. So when people are saying the 1% rule or the 2% rule, what they're really saying is 1% rent to price, 2% rent to price. They might say the 2% rule doesn't exist anymore. The 1% rule doesn't exist anymore. Well, it doesn't exist the same way that if you go to Burger King and you ask them to make a taco, they'll say, no, that doesn't exist. That doesn't mean tacos don't exist. It just means that Burger King's not going to give it to you. You got to go to the right place because the 1% rule absolutely does exist. The 2% rule absolutely does exist. I've got students closing on 2% rule properties right now. So you have to go to the right spot. If you are trying to go fishing and you go to a swimming pool, what's the likelihood you're going to catch fish? Probably zero. But instead, if you want to catch a fish and you go to, your friend down the street has a barrel in his backyard that's stocked full of trout and he's got a shotgun next to it, it's like shooting fish in a barrel. It's easy. Just make it easy on yourself. So here's how to tell. The rent to price ratio, I'll give you a quick and dirty method for finding. This is what I call the top-down method. For my students, I bring them through the top-down method. We go through the economic data analysis of the market, and then we do the bottom-up method. And then they select their market. The top-down method, there's a quick cheat code. You do the rent to price ratio for the market. So you want to look at rent divided by price. Then the question is, well, how do I find the rent for a market and the price for a market? These are the numbers to use for this. You ready? The rent is the median 3-bed rent, and the price is the median single-family home price. Find this all over the place. All right. So now every place that you look is going to have a little bit different number. So you got to find the right number. I like to use bestplaces.net. Last I checked, their information is a little bit lagging. You could use ChatGPT for this. Just say, hey, find me 10 numbers for median home price for this market and give me the median number for that and use that number. All right. And then take the rental price for a 3-bed, the average rental price or the median rental price for a 3-bed house and use that as the rental value. Whatever resource you use to find that number, you can use census, you can use HUD data, whatever you want, whatever resource you're using to find that number, you just need to be consistent across all the markets. You can't compare apples with oranges. It's got to come from the same data source. But at that point, you've just got to get the median numbers. And once you get those, I'll give you a pro tip to save you time. If that number is above, or if it's below 0.7%, throw it out and never look back. Do not do that. Don't look back the same way that Lot shouldn't have looked back and Lot's wife shouldn't have looked back. Don't look back. Treat it like Sodom and Gomorrah. Just leave. All right. Because it's never going to cash flow. If it's between 0.7 and 0.8, it's probably not going to cash flow. I would not waste your time. If it's above 0.8, you can leave it on your list. Ideally, this number, the true rent to price ratio, after you do the bottom up market analysis, you look at actual listings on market, sold data, actual sold data. You determine the rent to price ratio for probably 30 to 50 properties in that market. A simple random sample of those that are rental grade, it should be above 0.9. And I think a perfect selection is going to be above 1%. What that tells you is if the market rent to price ratio is 1%, that means that the average just standard boilerplate rental is going to be it's going to be a 1% rental. You could be an idiot You could be the worst real estate investor ever. And if the average rental property, the average cash flowing rental property is a 1% rent to price ratio in the market that you picked, that is like shooting fish in a barrel because you cannot know a whole lot and stumble into good deals, as opposed to investing in your own market that sucks for cash flow. And you could be an Einstein for real estate investing. You could be the best real estate investor in the world, and you're not going to find something that cash flows there. It's just not going to happen. I'm not going to find baby clothes for my kid at Home Depot. That's just not going to happen. So pick a good market. So that's the quick and dirty way that I would say for how to do that, Brock. Remote markets that I recommend right now. I'm seeing really great deals coming out of Akron, Ohio, and Birmingham, Alabama, and I would also those are probably tier ones, and right at tier 1B would be Macon, Georgia. Macon, Georgia is another great one. But to be clear, there's probably 50 to 100 cash flow markets in the United States right now. Yeah, legitimately 50 to 100 cash flowing property. Because, Doug, you ask 2% where, where's this at? Now, this isn't 2% as a market. This is 2% on a deal by deal basis. Usually there are a couple markets that are above 2%. Last I checked, but they have some really challenging and poor economic data. All right, because you want the home prices to be going up over time, not everybody leaving the market. So on a property by property basis, I've golly, in the last 2 weeks, I've seen 2%ers in Birmingham, Akron, in all three of those markets. Those are the ones that I think are really, really good right now. But the challenge is, you got to know how to analyze market because the market changes. It just changes. If things change, and a good example of this is Waco. Waco, Texas was a great cash flow market 5, 8 years ago. And then because Chip and Joe Gaines showed up and you got Baylor putting a ton of money into the city and into the university, and now it's not a cash flow market. So if you used to invest in Waco and now it's not a cash flow market, what do? If you don't know how to pick markets, you're screwed. You can't buy properties ever again, unless you're buying them for appreciation and you have to take a negative $300 to negative $500 punch in the mouth every single month per property. You're not going to get free that way. So usually cash flow markets, typically 3 to 5 year window of cash flow ability. So you got to know how to do this again. You got to know how to do it over again. So you got to know how to evaluate markets. But those are the ones that I think look really, really good right now. I'm seeing really good deals come through. So that's what I'd say on that side of things. All right, we've got another 20 minutes. So if you got questions here for those that are on the call, send them over in the chat. Otherwise, we'll keep going with these questions, and we will take care of you guys to make sure that what you have in front of you as obstacles are removed. So, okay. All right. Bank says you can't do that to my lending. Okay. This next question essentially goes back to what I was talking about earlier, which is kind of the taco versus a burger option. So if you go to a burger stand and you say, I want a fajita taco, they might say you can't do that. That doesn't mean that tacos don't exist. You just got to go to Taco Bell, right? If you're asking the wrong person, you're going to get a negative answer. So the reason I share this is the question relates to finding loans. So if I ever have somebody that says, man, I can't find, in fact, I just had a connection, a friend here in town who's trying to build essentially a small home, tiny home community here in East Texas. And he said, I can't find anybody to finance these deals. I can't find anybody to finance this ground up construction. Most of the time, whenever somebody says that, they say, I can't find a lender to do this. It's not possible. I said, well, how many lenders have you talked to? And the answer is like, oh, 2 or 3. I called them. I set up a meeting. I sat with them in their office. We talked about it. And I spent an hour and a half totally, doing this. And I spent an hour prepping and I created all this. The reality is this, most of the time that you want to filter through the lender that you're talking to make sure that they even offer what you don't need to be going to Burger King if you know you want tacos. Now, if you know you want tacos, sure, you could go talk to Taco Bell. But if you want catering for your wedding, I know some people are really obsessed. Like my brother-in-law is really obsessed with Taco Bell. They might have done Taco Bell for their wedding. But not everybody wants taco. You probably want something nicer. That doesn't mean that their tacos are good, bad, or indifferent. It just means you want different tacos. So you've got to talk to more lenders. The reality is that there are tons and tons. There's so much money out there you can't even imagine. There's so much money out there. As far as lenders are concerned, if you've got, golly, let's say if you're looking for somebody to do a flip, or you're looking for somebody to finance your burr, or you're looking for a long-term financing or short-term rental financing, there are lenders out there that 1000% are going to do that. You just have to talk to the right ones. So again, if you're looking for a hard money lender, just go Google or search with ChatGPT. Say, I'm looking for, I have this type of property. Find me 10 hard money lenders that do A, B, and C. I've got in our school community, if you want my lender vault, it's one of the products in there. You can earn that through just helping other people in the community, responding to their stuff, providing value in the community. You can also purchase it, but it's got hundreds of lenders in there that include everybody from 90% loan to cost to 100% financing loan to cost. Hard money lenders, there's some private money brokers in there as well. But again, if a lender says you can't do that, that just means that they don't do that. That doesn't mean you could never do that ever. It just means that they don't do that. Um, Boom. All right. My biggest problem, next question. My biggest problem is money. How do I find the money to fund the deals? If I just had money, I'd be fine. Okay, so let me, I'll address this at the top. We talked a little bit about raising private money here earlier, so I'll defer to that as far as how to do it. But this is a big challenge. When I hear somebody say, like, if I just had the money, I would be fine. The reality is that's not true. It's just the next problem you can see. So next problem you can see is like, well, I don't have $200,000 to just go buy one rental. So I guess I can't do it. And I have to get that money first. The reality is the way that you make that money is you build the skill necessary to be able to make that money. And most people that are saying, I just need the money. If I just had the money, it would be fine. The money is just the next thing they can find, the next problem that they see. Where you need to switch the way that you're thinking about this to, instead of, if I just had this money, it'd be fine, to how can I create this money? How can I find this money? Whether it's someone loaning to me, or it's creating that money through the value that I provide, through the skills that I'm learning, a rare and valuable skill like real estate investing. That's the reality. Because most people, if I were to just tell you, Ryan, who asked this question, if I were to just say, like, hey, I'll fund your next deal, 99% of the people that I talk to that say I just need the money, they wouldn't get their first deal. They wouldn't get it in 2 years, because they don't know the skill for how to identify, underwrite, and close on properties. Now, that maybe they could go buy any random property, but they would lose a bunch of money on it. You could buy a property, but you have to know how to evaluate the property, how to select your market. There are so many steps downstream that usually the I just need money it's a false flag. It's not actually exactly what you need. What you need is focus, accountability, direction, and whether that's coaching or not. I know that if you're selling umbrellas, you're going to be telling people it's going to rain. I obviously run a coaching business, but I also invest in my own portfolio. If you were my brother or my sister or my best friend, I'd say, you don't have to use me. You don't have to use a coach at all. But you probably do need somebody to walk you through it. You probably need somebody you can ask questions to. Most of the people that are in my program, it's because they don't have anybody that they know that does this. That's why the Rentals to Wealth community is so valuable. Is now you're around people that are trying to do the same thing, or that are doing the same thing. So they can both celebrate you, and they can both identify with you when they're like, oh yeah, I had that headache, or oh yeah, that was a challenge for me. Now you just realize, like, oh, this is just what it's like to be buying properties. But the reality is, you got to know what you got to get some guidance, and you could YouTube University it to a certain extent, but that works really well when you're in the familiarity and identification stage of what strategy should I use. Then when you pick the strategy, or you say, I'm going to go, jump in at the deep end on this, you really need somebody to walk you through the process. So usually, just whenever you ask this question, Ryan, about funding, it's usually a false flag. So you got to open up and say, all right, well, if I had the money, how would I analyze a deal? How do I find a good deal? Go analyze. If you find a really, really great deal, most of the time you can find a lender. So that's what I'd say on that side. As far as finding private money, you can watch the replay of this for an answer on that on that side of things. All righty. All right. Okay. All right. I'm talking with an agent and they will only share contractors with me if I work with them. Okay, what should I do? So what I would say is, I mean, you can have a conversation with them, but I would just move on. I'd find another contract or I'd find another agent. And here's why. The reason why is when an agent says, you're only going to get this if you work with me, one, they're probably going to require you to sign a buyer's rep agreement. If you can't avoid that, you should. You should avoid signing a buyer's rep agreement because it unnecessarily ties you to them. And it doesn't, they don't provide any other value. And so what I would ask them is, okay, I'm open to signing this buyer's rep agreement. What value do I get from signing this? I know what value you get, which is all of the commissions on any properties that I buy. What do I get from this? And they might say, well, you get more attention, you get more, you don't really get anything. You don't really get anything in return. So if you're talking to an agent, you say, "Hey, do you have any contractors that you work with? Would you be willing to share them?" And they say, "I only share those with my the people that I work with directly." What that shows is they see that as a core value for what they offer. Like they what they're telling you is, "I don't have much else to offer, but that is one of the main things I have to offer." If that's the case, your agent's not very good anyway. The other thing it shows is a scarcity mindset where they think like, oh, I got to hold all this stuff close because there's not enough out there. And if I share this one thing, then I'm screwed. Then somebody else is going to beat me or they're going to win. The reality is there's so many deals out there. There are so many deals out there. In the last 2 weeks, I've had 4 or 5 students tell me that they closed on their first, second, and third properties and they said I didn't realize like I can't keep up. Like one of them was saying like I closed on I think he closed on 4 at once, and he was like I when I go into acquisition mode like I'm like there's so many deals how many should I close on at once to make sure that I'm not out over my skis, but I'm also not just sitting around twiddling my thumbs. There are so many deals out there, so if they have that scarcity mindset, that is really going to bleed into your relationship with them. The most practical way you'll see that is in deal analysis. If you say, what's the value of this property? They might say, well, if the value is truly 150, they might say 120 or 130 because they're scared. And that fear, then they give that to you and you try and run it a little bit conservatively. They say 120, 130. So you say 120, that's going to break every deal out there. Then it looks like there are no good deals in this market when really your expert just stinks. It's just not you've got the wrong person. So that's what I'd say on that side. I would not work with them. But if you're in that conversation and they do say like I only work with them, I only give those to people that I work with, I would say like, well, that's totally fine. But what that probably tells me is we might not be a good fit to work together. So why wouldn't you share those? Right? Because that it's just contractors. You could Google them, you can find them. Why wouldn't you share those? And I think what that will reveal is there's the chance that they might be playing a game of cat and mouse where they're like, okay, I'm going to use this thing to force him to make a decision, force him or her to make a decision, when really it's a commodity. Like I've got lists of contractors. You can go Google contractors. Like there are ways to find contractors that are trustworthy contractors and are not going to screw you. And there are ways to protect yourself from contractors screwing you and you actually having to pay for it. That you don't need that. So that's what I'd say on that side. Da-da-da-da. All right. Doug asked in the chat, what are the best ways to find deals after you've decided on market? All right. So the first step, one of the first things that you'll do when you start is you identify and you select your market. Then you start building out your team. After that, you need to be building out deal channels. And there's really 3 main deal channels. There's on market, there's off market, and there's direct to seller. I recommend new investors to focus on and off market deals, not direct to seller, because direct to seller requires a marketing budget of at least $500 a month. And you probably need more, but at least $500 a month. So now you're moving in the wrong direction because you want cash flow. You want $5,000-$10,000 a month to be able to be work optional, but now you're already negative. And I get that it takes money to make money, but you don't need to do that. So, and it's a discrete skill set. Like it's a very marketing oriented skill set. So you're going to be sending out direct mailers. You're going to be sending, and then you got to have the sales conversation with them to get them to sell. Let somebody else do that. If there's a really discrete amount of forever, Mona. Glad that you're here. If you got questions, send them over in the chat. If you have a really discrete skill set that is a core function of being able to close deals, find an expert for it. So what I say here is on market and off market deals are where I recommend focusing. On market deals are so easy to get. You can see them all over the place. Trulia, Zillow, whatever. You can set up filters to be able to put them in your inbox. I would recommend having an agent set up an MLS listserv. You'll get the deals faster. You'll get them before the greedy people do. And tell them I'm looking for single family and small multifamily up to $400,000. I would recommend splitting those out, like a single family home versus a multifamily list serve, because otherwise you're going to get single family homes up to $400,000 and those aren't going to cash flow at all. But I do single family homes up to $150,000 and small, fourplexes and below for multifamily up to $400,000, $600,000, whatever you want to do. That way, those hit your inbox. That's the on-market deals. There's some benefits of on-market deals and there's some trade-offs. The benefit is accessible, easily accessible. You can get access to it easy. The trade-off is easily accessible. All right, you can get access. Anybody can get access to it easy. So if there's a lot of people, that's higher supply or that's higher demand, same amount of supply, price goes up. So you're just going to pay more. So with on-market deals, you're not going to find unbelievable deals. With on-market deals, you can find some good ones, some singles and doubles. You're not going to find any home runs on-market deals. And for your first 1, 2, 3 deals, you really should be looking for singles and doubles. You should not be looking for the perfect deal. First of all, the perfect deal doesn't exist. But you just need to find good. If you just bought decent deals, average, fine cash flowing deals, that would change your life. And you might say, when you close on a property, you say, oh, yeah, it's a good deal. It's not like I'm not writing home about it or anything like that. In 5 years, that deal, the cash flow on that's going to double because your mortgage payment is if it's a fixed rate mortgage, it's going to stay the same. Your insurance, your property taxes will go up marginally, but your ability to rent out that property increases. On top of that, properties with the amount of money that we printed in a reasonably appreciating market, your home is going to double in value in 8 years. I just talked to a friend who's listing one of their properties and it doubled over the last, I think they've had it for 10 years. So that typically homes double in value every 10 to 15 years. And with the amount of money that we printed, I think that's going to accelerate. So that's the on-market properties. The really great deals are off-market properties. And really, you could argue that off-market properties would include direct-to-seller, and I agree with that. But when I say off-market properties, what I mean is they are not on the MLS, and you're not doing the work for them. The primary way you're going to find these are through wholesalers. So in order to get the demand generation that you need, the amount of leads that you need, you probably need 40 to 50. You probably need 40 to 50 active wholesalers in your market to be able to get the deal flow that you want to be able to be closing on deals. Because wholesalers are a rare breed in that there's some wholesalers, they work for large wholesaling agencies like New Western, and their goal is to close 5 of them a month. And then there are others there's no barriers to entry. There's no regulation. There's no licensing required. So there are others that they just want to close 1 deal a year. So if you've got 10 of those people that just want to close 1 deal a year, how many of those, right? How many deals are really going to be hitting your inbox? 1. My students, we're sending off-market deals. We sent 100 deals, over 100 deals last week to our students because we've built that process out. So I use some of the back end stuff for my coaching program, our CRM, and we built it out to find, identify, and nurture wholesalers. And so now we send those to our students. So in addition to teaching them how to do it, we're also doing it for them and sending them those deals. So you need to find some wholesalers. There's also some other ancillary ways that are really helpful. That if someone were to ask, like, what's the number one way that would be helpful to find great deals, off-market deals, I'd say find a bunch of wholesalers. And when someone says build a relationship with wholesalers, I want to asterisk that. Building a relationship with a wholesaler, this is a vendor relationship. The way to get insider deals with a wholesaler is to buy a deal from them. Then they're going to come to you first because they know you're a legit buyer. But when people say build a relationship with a wholesaler, that doesn't mean ask them where they came from. Oh, what's your family like? Tell me about your kids. Oh, she's doing soccer or ballet. Ooh, that's so cute. It's more of a vendor relationship. Kind of like, when you check out at the fast food place, you're not like, oh, you don't know their kids' names, and you're not like, how was vacation, right? They're just a person, right? That doesn't mean that they're less or more valuable. It just means that's the type of relationship you have with them, and that's how a wholesaler works. Whereas your core trusted partners on your team, those three, your contractor, your property manager, and your agent, those are people you need to have a better relationship with, like an actual relationship, a trusted partner relationship with. So that's what I'd say on the wholesaler front. You got to find 40 to 50 active wholesalers, people that are actually still investing in wholesaling. They're investing their time in wholesaling in order to make that happen. And the reason I clarify that is wholesaling is a really transitional or transitory role in real estate. A lot of people start out in wholesaling because of low barriers to entry, and all you need is hustle. You don't need any money, and because there's very, very limited liability. So they get a few deals and then they realize, like, oh man, these people are making all the money. Now I got some money. Okay, cool. Now I'll transition into something else. So those people now, they're not wholesalers. So you always got to be cultivating your relationship with wholesalers. That's number one thing I'd say. There's some other ancillary stuff like, trolling Facebook Marketplace or setting up some automations and stuff like that. That's what I'd say on that side of things. So, all right, well, we're about at time. And so we'll go ahead and start wrapping up. If you got a quick hitter or a quick question you want to toss over in the comments, let me know and I'll answer those. Thanks for joining. I'm glad you guys are here. Hopefully, this is valuable for you. If you want to learn how to get a cash flowing property in 90 days, go to 90dayrentalroadmap.com, fill out the application. In fact, I'll send that link over in the chat again. Boom. 90day rental roadmap.com. Fill out the application and book some time to talk, and we can talk about whether or not we're a good fit. We are awesome at what we do. We don't do everything, or just like the burger shop or the taco shop. We don't do everything. So, if you want to learn how to sew, I'm not the right person for you. You know what I mean? But if you want to learn how to buy cash flowing properties, we can kill it at that. So if you're interested, go there. If you are watching this not in the Zoom call, go to join our community in school. So SKOOL, school.com/rentals2wealth. That's rentals, the number two, wealth. Tons of other people in there, other people that are focused on exactly what you want to do, which is build cash flow out of a real estate portfolio. Bunch of trainings, bunch of resources, scripts, and stuff like that to help you get rolling. So hopefully that's helpful. We will see you next time on our next Q&A. All right, happy investing.